Broadcast live on Spectrum Channel 180 and on the Henry County website. For anyone wishing to speak tonight, a total of 10 minutes will be allowed for anyone wishing to speak in favor and 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition of an agenda item. For example, if 10 people wish to speak, they must share the 10-minute slide. Please stand for invocation and pledge. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. And we ask that you keep in mind those that has been impacted by the recent storms that we've been incurred with throughout the state and throughout our bordering states. At this time, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Staff, do we have any comments?
Yes, sir. The following items were originally advertised for a public hearing tonight, but have been postponed and will not be heard this meeting. Those items are COMP AM 2406, Strickland Farms LLC of McDonough, Georgia, requesting amendment to the comprehensive plan for property located on Strickland Road, east of Simpson Mill Road and north of Walker Drive, and land lots 239, 240, 241, 242 of the 3rd District, and 241 and 242 of the 6th District. The property consists of 249.8 plus or minus acres, and the request is to amend the future land use map designation from low-density suburban to office institutional. The associated RZ 2420, which is a Strickland Farms Road LLC rezoning from RA to O&I for a data center, has also been postponed, as well as RZ 2417, Ryan Holmes of Peachtree Corners, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA to RM for property located south of Anvil Block Road, west of Bowden Road, and land lots 199 and 218 of the 12th District. The property consists of 43.78 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a townhome development. So those three zoning cases have been postponed to a later date.
Okay. All right. Anything else, staff?
No, sir.
Okay. If not, we'd like to proceed and call the first case, please.
BR-24-10, Cynthia Graves of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a variance for property located at 1500 Pates Creek Road in land lot 56 of the 6th District. The property consists of 1.16 plus or minus acres, and the request is for relief from development standards. District 2, presented by Alexius Jones, Planner 1.
Good evening, Chair, board members, and citizens of Henry County. The item before you is for property at 1500 Pates Creek Road, and the request is to reduce the front yard setback from 75 feet to 32.6 feet. This is the property from an aerial view. The property is zoned RA, residential agricultural. This is a survey which was submitted by the applicant. This is a photo showing the front of the home. The home was built in 1959 per tax records, with an addition being added at a later date. A portion of the addition was destroyed by fire in September of 2021. The home currently sits 32.6 feet from the edge of the right-of-way, and the proposed addition is set back 37.7 feet, according to the site plan dated March 14, 2024. The intended purpose of a variance is to allow development of real property which, due to dimensional standards, would prevent the property from complying with development regulations. The special circumstances of this request are not due to actions by the applicant, but rather the fact that the home was built prior to the adoption of the ULDC. Staff recommends approval of the request to reduce the front yard setback from 75 feet to 32.6 feet with the following conditions as shown. And I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Do board members have any questions for staff?
No, not at this point.
Okay, will the applicant please come forward? And please make sure to state your name and address when you come to the podium. And you're welcome to move the mic so that it's easy to speak into. There you go.
My name is Cynthia Graves, and it's 15 Humla Pates Creek Road, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281.
Thank you. And you can proceed and present your information.
Okay, I've been trying to build this house back since it's caught on fire, because my great-grandfather and my grandfather built it. And I just want to keep it in with all of us.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have questions for the applicant?
I just have one question. Do you plan to go back with all the upgrades, or do you plan to enlarge the structure, or what's the overall plan?
What does that mean?
So are you going to enlarge it? Are what are you planning on doing if you would like to come forward, sir? Thank you.
No, ma'am, we want to go back just like it was. We just want to put the old addition that burnt, we want to put it back like it was originally.
And can you also say your name and the
My name's
address?
Angelo Graves.
Thank you.
Address is 1500 Pates Creek Road, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281.
Thank you.
No other questions.
Other questions for the applicant? Yes, sir.
Yes, I believe that in your application you said that this house was built in about 1959.
That's our record, yeah.
Okay, well, that would have been prior to any zoning regulations in Henry County, so it's really a non-conforming situation that preceded our regulations, so that's something to consider as well.
Other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We do have 8 minutes and 14 seconds left for anyone else that wants to speak in favor of this case. Okay. We can now allot 10 minutes for anyone that wants to speak in opposition of this case. Nobody coming forward? Any other questions from the board for the applicant or staff?
No.
Do we have please call the case.
DR-24-10, Cynthia Graves of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a variance for property located at 1500 Pates Creek Road in Land Lot 56 of the 6th District. The property consists of 1.16 plus or minus acres, and the request is for relief from Development Standards District 2, presented by Alexius Jones, Planner 1.
And is there a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to move with staff recommendation of VR 24-10 of approval.
Second? I'll second. We have a second. Any other discussion or questions from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor? All right, the motion carries. Thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to our chair.
Thank you.
All right, call the next case, please.
RZ-24-21, Pold Homes Company LLC of Alpharetta, Georgia, requests rezoning from C1 Neighborhood Commercial and OI Office Institutional to R5 Single Family Residence for property located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Jonesboro Road and Chambers Road in Land Lot 109 of the 6th District. The property consists of 21.50 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a townhome development. District 5, presented by Kamal As Salam, Assistant Director.
Good evening, Chair, board members, citizens of Henry County. The rezoning request in front of you is for property located on Jonesboro Road, east of Chambers Road. The property is currently zoned C2 and O&I, and the applicant is requesting a rezoning to R5. The subject property is highlighted in green on each map and is surrounded by various zonings, mixed-use and medium-density residential future land use designations. The property has a future land use designation of high-density mixed-use, which allows a density of 8 to 20 units to the acre net. The applicant is requesting a rezoning from C2 and O&I to R5 for a 21.50 plus or minus acre fee simple townhome development. A review of the zoning records indicates that the property was rezoned RZ 0359 from RA to C2 with a portion of O&I on May 18, 2004 with 15 conditions. The property was also granted an administrative waiver on November 20th, 2006 to reduce the required width of landscape strip and interpretation of condition number 4 of RZ 0369 rezoning. The rezoning request, RZ 2136 from C2 and O&I to MU for a mixed-use multifamily, commercial, and townhome development was tabled by the Board of Commissioners on March 21st, 2023, and has since been withdrawn by staff. The applicant is proposing a new development, a fee-simple townhome development consisting of 174 total units, 63 rear entry, and 111 front entry. All townhome units are 24 feet wide as proposed. The future land use designation of the subject property is high-density mixed use, which allows densities of 8 to 20 dwelling units per acre. The proposed development has a gross density of 8.1 dwelling units per acre and a net density of 10.21 dwelling units per acre. These are the proposed elevations that display a modern farmhouse-style architecture. The property is within the Highway Corridor Overlay District and will be required to comply with those standards. The property will also be required to comply with our ULDC Chapter 4.05.05 Design Standards for Multifamily Developments. This slide shows input that we received from various departments regarding infrastructure and public safety. The details of each department's comments can be found in your exhibit books. The subject property appears to be able to be developed as proposed with additional conditions. The Henry County SPLOST Department is currently in the right-of-way acquisition stage of the Jonesboro Road widening from Mill Road to Mount Carmel Road, which they expect to be complete and operational by late 2027 at the latest. Staff recommends approval of the request with the 15 conditions outlined in your exhibit books as well as in the presentation. I'd like to bring your attention to conditions number 5 and 6. Condition number 5, the developer should not be granted any building permits until January 1st, 2027, or until the construction of the Jonesboro Road SPLOST widening is completed, if earlier than January 1st, 2027. And the owner and developer shall dedicate up to 35 feet of right-of-way along Jonesboro Road as determined necessary by SPLOST for the widening of Jonesboro Road before the issuance of any land disturbance permits. And I'll be happy to take any questions at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have questions for staff?
Just one question. You said the amount of proposed units is how many?
I'm sorry, you said how many units?
Yes.
It's 174 total units.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions for our staff? I have one question for you, staff. Now, you said 134 units?
74.
74 units, and it was previously zoned multifamily?
No, it was previously zoned, it's currently zoned C2 and O&I, There was a request for multifamily a couple of years ago, but they've withdrawn that request and replaced it with this one.
Okay. And what's the potential of this location if this is approved or not approved? In terms of, can we go single family, or what would happen?
So if this is not approved, then they can do commercial as is, with a few conditions that were outlined in the 2003 rezoning.
Okay. And on the multifamily, what was the potential in terms of the number of spaces?
I don't have that right in front of me, but off the top of my head, I want to say that was 350 units. I can pull the report.
It's not a problem.
It was much more than what's being proposed right
I
now.
just wanted a comparison. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
All right. Any further questions for staff?
Yes. In terms of the widening of the road, so what we're doing is allowing for even more property from this for the advancement of the widening of Jonesboro Road.
Yes, ma'am. So if approved through our conditions, the developer will be dedicating land to Henry County directly to SPLOST so that they can complete the widening. Right now, SPLOST is in the right-of-way acquisition stage, and that means that they're paying property owners to acquire right-of-way so that they can do the widening. These conditions allow us to basically get that right-of-way for free pending the rezoning.
Right, and does that impact the plot that we're seeing right here? So in other words, will that egress into the property, and then some of these may have to come back or come off because of the footage?
No, ma'am. So
Nope.
as presented, this plan takes into account Jonesboro Road widening being complete.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any further questions for staff? If not, we'd like the applicant to come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, my name is Garrett Smith. I'm the Vice President of Land Acquisition for Pulte Group in Atlanta.
Hold on one second, Mr. Smith. Oh. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Garrett Smith. I'm the Vice President of Land Acquisition for Pulte Group in Atlanta. The proposal you have before you tonight is one that's been evolving over time. And I think this is the best use, considering all the changes that this property has gone through over the years. I brought with me the slides of the pictures. These townhomes are very similar to the townhomes we are currently building at a community called Embry in Johns Creek. As the planner said, they are a farmhouse style with masonry. There are 2 and 3 stories, front and rear entry. The square footage ranges from 1,900 square foot up to 2,300 square feet. You can see the interiors are modern and open floor plans. The target consumer group that we're going after is move-down buyers or empty nesters and singles, along with first-time home buyers. The price point of these units is going to be from the mid-400s. The site plan before you has several pocket parks. The site itself is partially developed at this time, so that the layout of the site plan is actually in accordance with some of the existing infrastructure that's on the property. It features pocket parks, some passive amenities. There's a pavilion, a fire pit is planned. There's a central mailbox kiosk there with the parking, and a dog park. Pulte Group is a company that's headquartered in Atlanta, and we're very proud to be in Henry County. And I'm available to answer any of your questions.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have questions for the applicant?
Yes. Will this particular property be gated if the rezoning is approved?
The property will not be gated.
Okay. Were there any thoughts of potentially putting in a pool or any other amenities?
We consider the pool, but when our customers that we are seeing in the Johns Creek area, they think the amenities are really the surrounding area. So the location of this property in particular is near a lot of good commercial and has got very convenient access to I-75 along for Jonesboro Road. And so most of them are kind of high activity. They have their own amenities that they engage with exterior to their community. A lot of them will be lock and leave type residents. And so it's more important, I think, for them to have things like a dog park or places to gather and walk through the neighborhood than it is really to have an active amenity that you would see in like a traditional family neighborhood.
Thank you.
Any further questions for the applicant? Okay, if not, we have 7 minutes and, you may be seated, sir. We have 7 minutes and 21 seconds for anyone wishing to speak in favor. I don't see anyone coming forward. At this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. If you're coming forward, please state your name and address for the record, and we have a total of 10 minutes for those wishing to speak.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Jewell, and my address is 925 Mystic Way, Hampton, Georgia 30228, and I am a proud graduate of Leadership Henry, class of 2018, best class ever. On Monday, August 26, I attended a town hall meeting here, and at that time, it was a public safety meeting, and the officers, the chief of police stated that the jail is currently overcrowded, that the maximum capacity is 800, and we are now sitting at 900. Chief Ireland also said that most of the calls that are coming in to police are from District 5 off Jonesboro Road in the shopping center. According to the information also shared that night, we have outgrown what public safety in Henry County can handle. And in 2025, when our ISO rating is reviewed again, this will cause all of our insurance ratings to go up. So I ask you, why would we put more things when right now public safety cannot handle what we already have, and you are telling me that our housing insurance is going to go up because of this? Commissioner Lewis also stated that night that the blue signs, they even brought out the real big ones, that they will always be put out when there was time for a zoning meeting. On my way home, I noticed one on Mount Carmel that was overgrown by brush and debris, took a picture of it, sent him an email on August 27th. He apologized and told me he would let planning and zoning know. I informed him at that time during that email that 2 of my top 5 core values are integrity and accountability, and I will hold you accountable as elected officials of Henry County, and I will also be honest with you about what is not happening. So with this, why were there no signs posted? I want us to have that same energy that we have when we place a moratorium in the North Ola area, which pauses all applications for mass development such as subdivisions and commercial complexes. I also want to say that the water pipelines have been worked on McCullough and Jonesboro Road, so that makes me wonder if there are deals being made under the table, because the guy who talked about that, you talked about the water and the sewage line, and that's already been worked on even though this hasn't been voted on. I am concerned about the schools and the overcrowding of the schools. Right now, they are not overcrowding. Right now, the graduation rate of Dutchtown is a 90. Last year, they were number 1. Today, they are number 3. And if we bring in more people that we can't handle for public safety, the schools can handle, but it's going to be harder to track, and we're not going to be able to get people, qualified people, to move out here because we are not concerned with safety, crime, and schooling. Good night.
Let me emphasize that it would be best if you hold your claps until after this, everyone has spoke, because we're cutting into the time that the people here want to speak. And we only have 6 minutes and 44 seconds at this point. So proceed, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Connie Snow, and I live at 426 Chase Marion Way, McDonough, Georgia. To start off, I would hope that you would extend the time to give every citizen the right to be heard. Also, additionally, I want it to be recorded that the agenda was not posted for this meeting until I actually called on Monday and requested it to be posted. So going back to what that lady said prior to me, how are we able to be aware of what's going on in our community if we're not being told ahead of time? With that being said, in regards to this project, the road widening right here on this side, there's a property across from it. If you look at this diagram right here, it doesn't give any room for the developer to bear the brunt of that road widening on Chambers. In fact, if we let that go as it stands, that property value, or that property person over there, they're gonna lose some of their property through eminent domain to encompass for that road widening. In regards to the Jonesboro Road widening project, that's gonna be used through eminent domain as well. It's already been publicized in the news. So what we're saying is we're gonna keep building these developers, and anybody else that has properties surrounding these developers are gonna lose their properties in order to encompass the infrastructure, when the developer should be 100% liable for that infrastructure. Additionally, in this paperwork, I noticed that there was some data about the schools. For this development, you anticipate 174 townhouses, but yet you say there's only gonna be 91 students from this development. How's that inaccurate data? I'm a worst case type planner, so I would like to say, let's just say one person in every house has a kid. That's 174 kids. Additionally, on that paperwork, you're stating that in order to accommodate those 91 kids, you're gonna need 4 classrooms at $300K per month, so that equals $12,000, or we could put them in trailers at $25K. I don't know about you, but I don't wanna see my kids learning in trailers because we're having to acclimate for the schools. And what I think is very interesting on this board, that the things that have been brought up are gates and pools, but not our education. It's kind of troublesome in my point. At the end of the day, there are developers who will have our elected officials tell us that the amenities that we want and the infrastructure that we need in our county cannot be done until we build. I don't believe that's a true statement, because I know we've already approved so many bills that have yet to happen, and the impact on our schools are going to be massive. And I'm pretty sure the state's going to help invest in our infrastructure, but they haven't even started yet, and we've already way overbuilt and already over-approved buildings. We want smart growth, not irresponsible growth. We know that we have so many other approvals happening. Our infrastructure is crumbling. However, the state might have a budget, but there's no way they're going to be able to help us as much as we need with everything you guys are approving. If we keep letting the developers build and our elected officials mislead us, we'll end up hurting the most vulnerable in our community, which is our kids, our senior citizens, and our ecosystem. Earlier, you said that this was meant for senior citizens at $400K. Guys, that's not logical. Most of our senior citizens are on fixed income. And then you say it's going to attract young families. $400K is not logical for a townhome for a young family. At some point, you guys got to do the right thing for us. We're up here all the time, and it's not happening.
Good evening, I officiate, my name is Brooke Winfrey, District 5. Just like my neighbors, I have a concern of high density. This is craziness. It just looks like greed. Even when you look at the overall site plan, it just looks like they're trying to shove as much as possible. And like Connie said, we don't have the infrastructure to keep up for it. I know due to case law in Georgia, we can't turn down development because of sole traffic, but we can because of public safety, I hear. And public safety, this is huge. Like they said about the jail, Cynthia did, that we gotta slow this down some way, somehow. We gotta slow it down. I had a whole speech here, but mainly density is the issue, and I wanna yield time for my neighbors.
My name is Malachi McCormick, 137 Himalaya Way. I oppose this because I saw in a statement here that it said that there were no modular facilities at Dutchtown. I have 5 kids, and there are modular facilities at Dutchtown Elementary. We do have some that they are planning to bring to Dutchtown Middle. This does not help us out in any bit. And it doesn't help us out in one bit that I want to bring up is because I was going to the gas station on the corner here one day and an ambulance was trying to get through. There was so much traffic, the ambulance couldn't make it through. I was able to sit there for about 5 minutes while the ambulance waited for the traffic to clear because nobody could go anywhere before the ambulance was allowed to go through. And they say there's going to be a road widening and it's accompanied here in the photo. This is how it currently looks. This isn't taking into account any road widening. And I also think about the current hospital and health facilities that we have around us, which are overrun and need to be updated. These people that move into this community, if it were to be allowed to be approved, would have not, they would not have a up to par health system to go to because it is currently overrun. So I would like to give the rest of the time to my fellow neighbors, and I hope you do oppose this community. Thank you.
Kimberly Johnson, 225 Brixton Place, President of the Telfair Subdivision. The Telfair Subdivision does not support this. This would be the fourth development on that small stretch of road off of Chambers. And also, it is not true there are module trailers at Dutchtown Middle and Dutchtown Elementary School.
Mickey Cross, 185 Himalaya Way. I am the president of Woodbridge Estates built by Pulte Homes. As some of my neighbors have already spoken, that area on Chambers Road is already congested. We already have 3 or 4 apartment and townhomes that are brand new in the area that they haven't even filled. So I'm concerned about building and then empty facilities there. The cost of it is, I agree with everyone else who said, for $450, seniors cannot afford that, and when you were a young family, I'm sure you couldn't have either. Then the other concern is also, again, with the healthcare, I am a nurse, and Piedmont Henry is already maxed out. So you have to drive 20 out of your county to go to a hospital if you want to be seen. Thank you.
Thank you. We're out of town, but I'm going to allow these 2 people to continue. Please make it quick. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Angie Collins, Crystal Lake Golf and Country Club Community. And I have to tell you all, when this initially came about, I was just opposed to anything. And after years of going back and forth trying to get something that would be comfortable for the community, I'm surprised that the builder actually came up with this. It looks like they are trying to, as has been said before, they're trying to put as much as they can on there with no amenities. If people don't have something to do, then that's when things start to go awry. You need some amenities that are going to attract individuals, such as a pool, a clubhouse, pickleball has gotten very popular. I don't see anything like that. A fire pit, and what else did he say? A dog walking park? I don't have any pets. I'm concerned about the green space that's not there. It just looks like they tried to take every inch of potential land and put a home on it. I've been driving in this community since 2006. I've seen 3 deers in this month alone dead along the side of the road, so I am concerned about the green space. The materials that are being used, I mean, they look nice, but we all just saw what happened with Helene and this new tornado that's coming down. We want to make sure that they're using solid brick, solid stone quality materials. And I was under the impression that this was going to be a walkable community, because if we have these beautiful homes and then you have beautiful homes across the street and down the street, there's nothing to do. For it to be a true walkable community, there should be some retail. I don't see why this would not be, if it's an upscale community starting at $450, why isn't it at least being considered for gated? We don't need any more entrances off of Jonesboro Road. They just added a 4th light on Jonesboro Road within a mile. We don't need a 5th. And let me see this. Let me make sure that I covered
Ma'am, I'm going to have to cut you off and hear the gentleman behind you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for allotting extra time. So back to public safety. We're behind on 8,000 warrants. Joshua Eckhoff, District 5. I lived across the street from this.
What's your address, Joshua? Please state your name.
321 Laurel Lane, McDonough, Georgia.
Thank you.
So when we say public safety, that intersection right there in front of that white building at CVS, motorcyclist lost his life last month. You go down to the other end of the block, that's McDonald's. Right there, if you zoom in, our children have nowhere to go, so they're vandalizing businesses ran by our local public. Back to public safety, 8,000 warrants behind, about 17 open vacant positions for our officers because they're not getting paid what they need. But we keep coming up with this. And I tell staff, hey, do we need to work with them? There's no connectivity, there's no parks. They don't put fountains in the ponds here, but they do in Alabama, Florida, Tennessee. So now after Publix was built, we have mosquitoes, new infestations. Homeowners are calling us public safety. There's only like 14 ambulances, and once you get picked up, it's a 45-minute to an hour and a half turnaround. We're outnumbering all the public safeties. So due to public safety, stuff like this needs to be denied, and staff needs to come back with drive through Alpharetta and see how communities are being built by listening to the homeowners who show up. Thank you for the allotted time. We appreciate everything y'all do for our community. Less litter, more love.
Thank you. Okay. Does the board have questions for staff or the applicant? Additional questions?
I do have additional question. I want to go back to looking at this plot, and you had mentioned that there is enough room for the widening of the road. Is the overlay here of the picture just not showing that? Because it looks like it's right up against Jonesboro Road.
Yes, ma'am. So they have to give 35 feet of right-of-way additionally, along with the right-of-way that's already there. So this displays the road widening as it should be presented, but we have to remember these plans are not engineered, these are conceptuals as well. So when it goes through, if rezoned and it goes through the actual process, they then have to work with SPLOST before they do anything to allot the correct amount of space for the road widening.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? I have, Mr. Richard, did you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. I have a question for you, staff. There was some concern about the schools and some of the other issues. Did we do a school study here?
Yes, sir. So the information we have came directly from the school board.
Okay. I think this is scheduled for 2027. Is that when the scheduled completion of the roadway?
So the hope is that they actually get it done before then. But we wanted to allot enough time for SPLOST to actually get the roads in before any buildings are built. Mm-hmm. So the hope is that it actually happens in 2026, but we wanted to allot enough time.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions for staff or the applicant? Okay.
I do have another question. On the entry that goes onto Jonesboro Road, is that just a right turn in and a right turn out?
Yeah, from this plan, it looks like it, but again, it's not engineered. So when the time comes, if the time comes to actually design the plans, they have to work with DOT and SPLOST to make sure they have the proper access. So if DOT and SPLOST look at the engineered plans and they don't like what they see, then they'll completely change it and require them to do other things. They also have to do a traffic impact study.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional?
No.
Yes.
Is
Ms. Walker.
there another exit or entrance on Chambers also? 'Cause
Yes, ma'am. It's one on Chambers right behind the CVS.
But that doesn't have a deceleration lane like the one on...
It'll be required to.
It will be required?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Staff, I have one other question. Approved or disapproved? Well, let's go with disapproved. What would this, what's the potential of this property if it's not approved?
It's just commercial.
Just a commercial
Yes,
property?
sir. And I don't exactly have those.
Please, let me say, we cannot tolerate any outbursts, so please keep all your clapping as of this point. This board has not voted on this plan, so I'm asking questions to determine what we're doing here.
And it's commercial, it's C2 now. I don't have the conditions from that 2003 rezoning right in front of me, but I will take another look at it. But in 2003, we didn't have all of those prohibited uses that we do now for a lot of these developments. So while they have zoning designation now, it could be commercial, but it could be commercial that's unsavory for the area as well. So this gives us a chance to add our own conditions that are relevant to 2024 as well. But they can do commercial. There's a reason, and I don't know why, but obviously it's been commercial for a long time and it hasn't developed, so.
Okay. All right, thank you. Ms. Walker?
Were all the rules followed about the time, about notification, signage, publicizing the meeting and all of that information, and the information made public in the timely manner?
Yes, ma'am. And also the sign, we leave a picture of the signs time-stamped when they were placed in your exhibit books as well.
Okay, that's a good question, Ms. Walker. There was some concerns about the sign, and I wanted to ask about that. Can you elaborate on that? Why is there a concern that the sign was it visible?
Well, we put the signs in place to where they are visible, but we'll be reminded, we did have a major storm come through a few weeks ago, and the sign may have been knocked down. So in instances like that, people call us and tell us it's knocked down, we'll go pick it up. If we're driving around, we'll go pick up the sign, but we're not there 24/7.
Right.
And signs fall.
Okay, so when you went out to, and this is just for my information, when you guys went back to retrieve the sign, was it knocked down or was it up?
I'm not sure. This is
Okay.
the first time I'm hearing about the sign not being visible.
Okay, thank you. All right. Does the board have additional questions for staff or the applicant? Okay, if not, may call the case, please.
RZ-24-21 Pulte Homes Company LLC of Alpharetta, Georgia requests a rezoning from C1 Neighborhood Commercial and OI Office Institutional to R5 Single Family Residence for property located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Jonesboro Road and Chambers Road in Land Lot 109 of the 6th District. The property consists of 21.50 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a townhome development. District 5, presented by Kamal As Salam, Assistant Director.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I make a motion to deny RZ 2421.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Call the next case, please.
RZ-24-08, Faisal Suparwala of McDonough, Georgia, requests rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to R5 Single Family Residence for property located at 297 and 309 Peach Drive in Land Lot 49 of the 6th District. The property consists of 10.7 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a detached cluster home development. District 4, presented by Faith Akuta, Planner 1.
Good evening, Chair, board members, and citizens of Henry County. The request before you are for properties located at 297 and 309 Peach Drive, and is 10.7 plus or minus acres. The request is to rezone the subject properties for the purpose of a detached, single-family cluster home development. The subject properties are zoned RA Residential Agricultural and are identified in green on the screen. The properties have a future land use designation of urban residential, supporting a density between 4.0 and 12.0 dwelling units per acre net. Here's the original site plan submitted to staff for this particular property. The original proposal was for 66 townhomes with a net density of 11.2 dwelling units per acre net. The revised site plan proposes 45 single-family cluster homes with a net density of 8.3 dwelling units per acre net. Here are elevations of the proposed cluster home development. These elevations may change as we move towards the Board of Commissioners meeting. The applicant is requesting to rezone 10.7 plus or minus acres from RA Residential Agricultural to R5 Single Family Residence for a 45-lot single family cluster home development with a density of 8.3 dwelling units per acre net. The future land use map designation of the subject properties are urban residential and would support a development between 4.0 and 12.0 dwelling units per acre net. Here we have a few comments on the screen from other departments in the county. After evaluating the applicant's request, staff recommends approval to rezone the subject properties from RA to R5 with 12 conditions. Please note that the conditions are subject to change prior to the Board of Commissioners meeting. At this time, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have questions for staff? Okay. If not, will the applicant come forward, please? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board.
Good evening, Mr. Moore.
One second.
That's it. All right. Good evening, Chair, members of the board. Steve Moore, Morebass Consulting, 1350 Keys Ferry Court, McDonough, Georgia, here tonight representing Faisal Superwala AA Peach Development on this proposed rezoning request. The subject property, as mentioned, is 10.7 acres, a combination of two properties, 10.7 acres, located on the west side of Peach Drive between Tunis and Campground Road, with future land use map designation of urban residential. This is a map just kind of showing the surrounding area. The site is outlined in white, so you can see there's that same land use pretty much surrounding the property on the east side of Peach Drive being in the city of Stockbridge. The subject property currently contains a few homes and some outbuildings. Those are proposed to be removed as part of this development. But there is a heavily treed area on the south, east, and west boundaries, which are proposed to remain in buffers as the site develops. And as Faith mentioned, our original application was for townhomes, for 66 attached townhomes. And after looking at the surrounding areas in a little bit more detail and consulting with staff, we decided that that was probably, not necessarily in kind fashion of what was immediately in the immediate area. And so our new plan was to separate those, create larger lots, and have each home on its own lot. So this is our proposal, is to rezone to R5 for a 45-unit single-family residential development. These will be fee simple, owner-occupied homes. The overall gross density is 4.2 units per acre. But as Faith mentioned, by the time you do the calculations for net density, we're at 8.3 units per acre. Approximately 31% of the site is being set aside as open space. There's buffers on all four sides of the development, with a larger buffer along Peach Drive. But those areas, again, will retain as much as possible the existing vegetation and then supplement that additional where needed to provide visual screening for the surrounding areas. There is an amenity area proposed kind of in the center of the site. That area consists of a dog park, open air pavilion, fire pit, and a playground. And then that area would be similar to this right here for showing that amenity area. And then the dog park that would be along the backside. As far as the
the HOA will be a very strong HOA. I know that's one of the zoning recommendations or zoning conditions. That HOA will maintain these common areas as well as the yard maintenance for the fronts of all of these units. So they'll have uniform yard maintenance to make sure everything is being kept up and maintained properly, providing just a very good visual aesthetic as you're driving through the community. And so as far as the elevations of these homes go, the developer has chosen a modern farmhouse style architectural theme for this project. These will feature 1- and 2-story homes, and they'll have a mixture of master on main for the single-story homes, and then for the ranch homes, and then a 2-story that would have approximately 1,600 to 2,000 square feet for the 2-story homes, 1,400 square feet to 1,800 square feet for the ranch homes with the master on main. And we're estimating these homes to start in the low to mid $400,000 range. Again, these are fee simple homes, owner occupied, not rental homes. So we feel like we've made improvements over the original request, which was for townhomes. We feel like we're offering some decent variety for the areas. There's areas south of us that are developed lots, bigger lots, but they were developed without access to sanitary sewer, which is why they're larger lots. There's lots across the street at Winslow at Eagles Landing that are more similar to this, although it's somewhat larger. But again, trying to provide a variety for the housing stock in this area to give people options, and felt like this was a reasonable approach for this property. We understand staff has recommended approval with the conditions, all of which are acceptable to the applicant. And I thank you for your time, for your service, and I'm happy to answer any questions when the time is appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have questions for the applicant? Mr. Ritchie?
Has there been any interest in annexing this property into the city of Stockbridge?
Not on the part of me or the developer, as far as I'm concerned. No one's approached us. That conversation has not been had.
Okay, any other questions? Ms. Walker? Okay. All right, you may be seated, Ms. Moore.
Thanks.
At this time, we have 5 minutes and 10 seconds for anyone wishing to speak in favor. Okay. I don't see anyone coming forward. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. And please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Angela McCleary, 119 Alberta Street. I live in Peach Point, which is one of the subdivisions on Peach Drive. Although I'm thankful that they are courteous enough to reduce the 66 homes down to the 45, I still can't believe that they're still trying to put 45 homes on 10 acres of land. It still seems like they're trying to compact a lot onto that. But to make my comment quick, this is a dead-end road that already has 7 subdivisions on it. And although the property that he showed on the screen doesn't have very many homes on it, the rest of the developments are very full. So we have a lot of homes in the area. And just recently, we received a new rental community called Jodico Landing, which you may be familiar with, that was recently built and was approved for 96 homes that was currently added to our community. That's less than a mile, almost a mile, maybe a mile and a half away. That's right around the corner. The elementary school is right next to where this property is going to be built. So we feel like we are already being consumed so much with so many buildings in the area that we don't need any more.
Thank you.
And we're worried about the safety as well.
Yes, my name is Celeste Vincelette. I live at 144 Early Gold Street in Peach Point subdivision. This is just a crowded area already with all the subdivisions we already have. Again, with the safety features and the safety issues that we too, it's just another conglomerate of stuff that's being thrown into the county. And there's still no hospital areas for them to go to. There's still no safety factors for all this conglomeration. There's no help that can be helped. Anyway, it's not a good idea for anybody to pile in a whole bunch of homes in just a tiny little space. We already have that behind us. It got snuck in behind our subdivision, and they're putting about, I don't know how many back there, at least 60 or 70 houses. And they're all clustered together. It's just too many people in this county. It's too crowded, the schools are too crowded, and it'll be a mess if this doesn't stop. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Connie Snow, and I live at 426 Chase Marion Way, McDonough, Georgia. This development really bothers me the most as I live so close to it. My children attend Eagles Landing Middle, High School, and Flippin Elementary, and I've been a resident for 20 years. For the past year, I've been fighting with the city of Stockbridge for all the annexations off of Patrick Henry and Holloway. Every meeting with them, I bring up the strain that's going to be impacted on our schools with those developments. And I was told by the mayor point blank that why he cared about the kids, that those schools were on county land and it wasn't his problem. So here's my problem. You're saying that this development's going to anticipate 21 students, but there's 45 houses. The math is really skewed here in regards to what we're anticipating for our kids. I just want to say that. You're anticipating it will take one class at $300K, but what you guys aren't actually factoring in is all the annexations off Patrick Henry because it's so disconjointed. There's no collaboration between the city of Stockbridge and Henry County, and we know that's absolutely true. Additionally, this is just so sickening to me to see that this is happening to our community. Our public safety, crimes at an all-time rate. I don't want to take too much time. I'm trying to get my thoughts straight. I just know if you guys keep approving these developments over here, you're going to end up hurting us all. And one more point, we have 15 failing schools in Henry County. The 38% failure rate. We're about pretty close to becoming Clayton County if somebody doesn't step up and do the right thing. And if we become Clayton County, we lose our accreditation, our property values crumple. And if that's what you guys want to have on your heads at night, knowing that our children suffer, then that's on you.
My name is Ann Fields. My address is 329 Chase Marion. I was serving as District 4 representative appointed by Vivian for the SPLOST committee. I do want to point out that that intersection of Holloway and Patrick Henry is already congested. It's impossible, absolutely impossible, to make a safe exit or any kind of left turn from Holloway because folks are cutting from Peach, weaseling their way through to try to avoid the intersections. So that's a traffic control issue, a public safety issue. I do want to compliment the developer for going down in density, and this is a really cute little community, but for somewhere else. This is a lot to pack into that property. It is well designed. It's probably, out of all the stuff I've seen in the last year, one of my favorites. But I still can't support it, knowing what Patrick Henry traffic looks like right now. If SPLOST 6 is not passed, Holloway and Patrick Henry are just going to become more and more congested with all the traffic flow from the Costco as continual development there occurs, which is happening right now, just since Costco opened. It's exponential. And there are no traffic studies being done. So we need to factor in all of those things. In addition, I wanted to say I am from Pittsburgh, and I cannot find any kind of quality medical care here in Henry County at all. I have to go north. And I find that despicable that I can't find health care in my own backyard after living in a place like that, where I could find health care every third building. We need to do more to attract the doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals that we need in this county. Thank you.
My name is Casey Vincelet. I live at 144 Early Gold Street, also in Peach Point subdivision off of Peach. I do want to thank the developer for their thoughtfulness towards changing this for the area. It is simply unthinkable. The amount of pollution from the construction, the amount of traffic. This road is one way in, one way out. There is no end. The end is one of the largest communities in the area, and there are already lines of traffic lining up every morning just to get the kids to school. I cannot imagine that that would be improved by having this amount of construction on top of all of the other construction that's going on in the area. Those houses, those townhouses that they cleared all of the acreage behind Peach Point to create, they're not even finished yet. Safety, again, we go back to the hospitals. I have had friends who've waited 10 hours plus with a ruptured appendix, which then caused them to have to spend weeks in the hospital and even more weeks in pain and recovery. There is just simply no way that this should go forward. There would be an impact on the schools. That is it's not the biggest elementary school out there. I used to tutor there. I know it very well. And if we add more children to that, we will be causing suffering for those children, and we will send them out into the world with a lack of the proper education that they deserve to begin their lives with. There will be less trees. There are a lot of trees on this property, a lot of big, mature trees that are providing a lot of oxygen for our ecosystem at the moment, especially in lieu of the trees that have just been decimated for the other housing properties that have not been finished on Campground Road. Right behind all of this, everything just to the right is all subdivisions, and then just to the right of that on the map is clearing for more subdivisions. It's simply too much for the area. Another safety concern is that these people, to get to Campground and 42, they will be cutting through the Winslow subdivision. When that new Campground Road was created, they cut through the middle of this subdivision. So children have to walk across a main road to get to the playground in their subdivision already. We do not have sidewalks on this road, which if we build this, it seems like it would lead to widening the road or some sort of road construction as well, because that road simply won't be able to handle the extra people in and out. It will create massive traffic problems, especially on Holloway and Patrick Henry, especially on the road that connects Tunis, where the middle school and high school are, to Peach. That road is also congested all of the time.
Ma'am, yeah, I'm gonna have to cut you off. Your time is up. Sir,
Thank you
if
so
you'll be very brief in terms of your comments, we'll hear you out.
Thank you. David McDonald, 103 Peach Point. My main concern, I'm not going to echo what was already spoken, but if we allow this, and there's a lot more landowners around that general area, and we set the precedence and put in more clustered homes, it ain't going to work. It's too crowded. When I first moved here, I didn't even have to look left from Peach Point or from Peach Drive to get on Jody Cove. Now, I might have to wait over a red light to cross it, because everything coming off of Willow, man, they get that green light forever. Well, mine turns green, 4 cars, it's red again. Stop it, please. This ain't right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Does the board have additional questions for staff or the applicant? Mr. Richard.
Yes, I have a question for the applicant.
Yes, sir.
I would like to know if your client has looked at other types of zoning that, that are nearby to this area, such as R3 or R4. There are some small communities that are zoned close by, which is much less dense than the R5. Has that been considered?
So we looked at various options when we were evaluating this property and this, again, and the surrounding area. Peach Point, Orchard Park are all on septic. So that's the reason why their lots are the size that they are, because there's minimum state standards for a septic tank lot. Winslow and all the properties on the east side of Peach Drive is zoned PD. And again, it's in the city. It was part of the original Eagles Landing master plan, as is Southgate to the north and Eagles Landing Country Club further to the north and the west from that, all part of the PD zoning district. So we looked at that. I don't know that there's a lot of R3 and R4 in close proximity, but what we were trying to do was to, again, preserve as much buffer area as we could around the outside and, just like it's called, cluster the development internally with smaller lots and smaller houses and more open space, and which is truly the reason why it reads as 8 units to the acre, because as you may know, the ordinance requires the open space areas to come out of the net density calculation. So if we didn't have the buffers and we didn't have all of the open space, we could make the lots larger, likely would end up resulting in a similar yield. It just wouldn't have the buffers that would be owned and maintained and secured by the HOA. It would be left on a lot. So we felt like this was a better alternative than that, than leaving it up to somebody to clear their buffer area and destroy the integrity of what we were trying to do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any additional questions for the applicant or staff? If not, you may be seated, sir.
Yes, sir.
Please call the case.
RZ-2408, Faisal Suparwiwala of McDonough, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to R5 Single Family Residence for property located at 297 and 309 Peach Drive in land lot 49 of the 6th District. The property consists of 10.7 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a detached clustered home development, District 4, presented by Faith Akuta, Planner 1.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion based on staff's recommendation that we approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimous. All right, call the next case, please.
RZ-24-24, Mark Knight of Griffin, Georgia, requests a rezoning from M1 Light Manufacturing to C2 General Commercial for property located east of Highway 155 South, north of Bill Garner Parkway, and land lot 211 of the 2nd District. The property consists of 2.94 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a commercial development, District 1, presented by Kenta Lanham, Planner 3.
Okay. And staff, I do believe this is an associated case.
Yes and no. As a point of clarification, the rezoning and the variance share property. However, there are different applicants. The variance is actually for a larger piece of property, which encompasses this rezoning request. For the purposes of public hearing, we want to hear them separately.
Okay,
We'll hear
that's
the
fine.
rezoning and the variance.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, board members, and
Good
citizens of Henry County. The item before you is property located north of Bill Gardner Parkway, east of Highway 155. Property is currently zoned M1, light manufacturing, and is approximately 2.94 plus or minus acres. The subject property is shown on your aerial maps in your exhibit books and on your red screen. The future land use map designation for the subject property is Village, which would support the rezoning request to C2. The Village future land use map designation is intended to support community centers, these nodes of commercial, office, and other uses to promote walkability and people-oriented environments. Brief zoning history of the subject property, the 2.94 plus or minus acres. That was rezoned in '04 from RA to M1 for the purpose of a self-storage facility. The remainder of the piece of property, that property directly south of that green area, still all one subject property, still all one property today. However, that larger piece was rezoned that same night from RA to C2 for a commercial development, and that'll come into play in a little bit later. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property from M1 to C2 for the purpose of a commercial development. Subject property is located within the boundaries of the Highway Corridor Overlay District and would need to meet those standards therein. Apologies, this next image is a large image. Future land use map, again, is Village, which would support the rezoning request to commercial for C2. Property, once again, is included in a larger variance request, VR 2411, for relief from development standards, which will be heard following this case. The subject property, again, at 2.94 acres or so, that is shown in that red on that map there. Again, part of a larger commercial development. Here are some comments that we received from various departments, including Department of Transportation, the Water and Sewage Authority, Public Safety. Staff does recommend approval of the applicant's request from M1 to C2 with the following conditions shown on the screen. Going back to the previous zoning history of that larger C2 piece, this piece is part of that larger zone, that larger property. So staff felt it appropriate to apply those same zoning conditions from that 04 rezoning to this request. In addition, with that, we did include additional conditions, starting with condition 7, moving on to condition 11. So again, kind of a blend of new and old conditions with this request.
Okay. All right. Does the board have questions for staff? Okay. All right. If there's no questions, Mr. you may proceed.
Yes, Chairman Nelson, Andy Welch here with Smith Welch Webb and White, representing Locust Grove Development LLC and Mark Knight on this rezoning application. Kent has gone through a good bit of the history. I think I always like to try to keep these things fairly simple and straightforward. It's about 3 acres. It's zoned M1 for self-storage. I think you're familiar with that intersection. There's already a self-storage on the corner at 155, with Bill Gardner and 155, a new one that was zoned on the southern part of that Bill Gardner Parkway. The objective here for the LLC is to construct a grocer at this location, and yes, it is right across from the Publix. So competition is a good thing for pricing, but it is right across the street from the Publix at that intersection, or would be if you approve it. And it would replace the area that's sorry, let me back up. This area here is zoned. All of this area here is zoned C2 commercial, and so this area that you're looking at is the M1 area, and so the next slide shows basically where that is. And as you can see, in order to build the facility, we need to put it in the right zoning classification, and the correct one is C2. So that's the short of it, and we would respectfully request your approval on that change of zoning. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay. At this time, we'd like to allot 8 minutes and 15 seconds for anyone wishing to speak in favor. You have anything else you'd like to add, Andy?
I hope this is the easiest question you have tonight.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, does the board have at this time, I don't see anyone coming forward. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Okay. Well, does the board have additional questions for the applicant or staff? Like to call the case, please?
RZ-24-24, Mark Knight of Griffin, Georgia, requests a rezoning from M1 Light Manufacturing to C2 General Commercial for property located east of Highway 155 South, north of Bill Garner Parkway and Land Lot 211 of the 2nd District. The property consists of 2.94 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a commercial development. District 1, presented by Kenta Lanham, Planner 3.
Okay. We've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve with staff conditions.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, call the next case, please.
VR-24-11 SEK Locust Grove LLC of Augusta, Georgia, requests a variance for property located east of Highway 155 South, north of Bill Garner Parkway and Land Lot 211 of the 2nd District. The property consists of 27.757 plus or minus acres, and the request is for relief from development standards. District 1, presented by Kenta Lanham, Planner 3.
Good evening once again, Chair, board members, and citizens of Henry County. The item before you is for property located north of Bill Gardner Parkway, east of Highway 155. Property is currently split zoned M1 and C2 and is 27.757 plus or minus acres. Does incorporate a portion, the subject property of the previous rezoning request. The variance request before you is for relief from development standards. Again, brief zoning history. This larger piece of property was rezoned back in '04 for RA to M1, as well as RA to C2. That bottom portion there was rezoned September 17, 2024, from RA to C2 with conditions for the purpose of a commercial development. The applicant is requesting a variance from setback and parking standards for the 27 acres. Property is located within the Highway Corridor Overlay District, and we need to meet those standards therein. This shows the, it would pull up, it would show the site plan here, and then Exhibit A here. Let me actually zoom in a little bit. Includes a list of the items that the applicant has requested a variance for, largely regarding setbacks and parking standards. The ULDC parking requirements today would require approximately 1,100 parking spaces to accommodate the proposed grocery store and out parcel tenants. The requested relief would actually reduce the parking by approximately 56%, right around 614 spaces. These parking standards with today's ULDC, they are from 2009 and require a significant number of spaces for developments of this size, for example. And it's not really reflective of today's current shopping trends. These parking standards are an element that staff is looking to modify and update, bring into today's standards with this upcoming ULDC overhaul. The request for setback reduction for some of those out parcel tenants, the purpose of that is to bring these commercial buildings closer to the road, keeping in good planning practice, as well as providing additional opportunities for screening the parking lot. With that, staff is recommending approval of the applicant's request. Excuse me, sorry. Staff is recommending approval of the applicant's request for relief from the development standards. Our recommended conditions and approval has modified slightly since the publishing of the report. That red text provides those changes. We directly reference Exhibit A, that previous table, just for simplicity's sake. And with that, we do have some additional stipulations, particularly one there. Setback for the gas station canopy shall be at least 40 feet from the future right-of-way of Bill Gardner Parkway. And then the remaining conditions 2 through 5 remain the same as what was published. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay. Does the board have questions for staff?
With the conditions, it still leaves all the right-of-way necessary for Bill Gardner Parkway widening?
That is correct. The previous rezoning request from September of this year has a condition, I don't recall the language off the top of my head, regarding right-of-way preservation and dedication. That condition would still be in effect, whether or not this variance is approved or denied.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have one question in reference to the retention. How do we get past the variance in terms of the retention there, or can you explain that?
Yes, so the subject property, the M1 piece, as well as portions of that commercial development for the majority of the site, was under development, but since then, course has changed and they've shifted, the applicant and property owners have shifted to this grocery retail. With that previous development and permit, pulling of permits, the larger stormwater pond there had already been approved. With this plan, there would be necessary modifications to that pond. Condition 5 reflects that existing stormwater detention, again, the one that was already kind of in progress, shall be grandfathered and allowed to be redesigned and redeveloped to accommodate any new development, new detention facilities, maybe one of the following types, and shall be underground or be made a feature of the development, subject to planning and zoning approval.
Okay, so the existing is going to accommodate the new area?
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And I want to just clarify, on the standards for the parking, what you were saying is that we're bringing it up to current standards. Is that what the variance is looking at?
The variance, portion of the variance would be to reduce parking standards, which is in keeping in good planning practice. Again, these parking requirements are from 2009. Certainly the shopping trends have changed significantly since. We're looking for less parking in some of these developments, and staff felt comfortable approving that variance request.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for staff? Okay. You may proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Nelson and members of the board. Andy Welch, here representing the applicant, which is, in this case, this is SEK, Locust Grove LLC. They're going to be the ones that are developing this on behalf of the grocer. I'm not supposed to mention the name, but I think it's already flashed on the screen. So, thank you, Ken. And so we were asking these variances, and what we've been working with the staff on, because we went through another rezoning that you heard a few months ago on 11 acres of this 20-plus acre tract, 30-acre tract. And in the process of that, that was fast, I could just say I'm done, but we're not there. So when we came before you before, we were just dealing with this area on Bill Gardner Parkway. And in that zoning, we did dedicate significant right-of-way along Bill Gardner Parkway, which is preserved. And you can see how this is already set back. The buildings on Bill Gardner Parkway are set back from Bill Gardner Parkway to accommodate for the widening of Bill Gardner Parkway. In addition, there's an easement, construction easement, that's also been granted in those other conditions of zoning for that 11-acre tract, which is the one fronting Bill Gardner. The variances that we're requesting allow us to push the buildings fronting Highway 155 closer to the road, which then pushes the parking behind it into the sides. And that creates a much more walkable, friendly environment for people when they park. It's more conducive to walk that way if you're not seeing the parking there. And also, what we're doing is reducing the amount of parking significantly, both because the land is a smaller piece of property than what you would standardly use for a grocer of this size, but also because the trends are that people are shopping and picking up their groceries more often than not. And so when you look at this side, the M1 area that we were talking about a minute ago, this area actually has parking stalls for pickup. So if you're coming in, you've already pre-ordered your groceries, then you drive in, you park over there, someone comes out and delivers your groceries to your car, and you go home. And that trend started, of course, with COVID. It's only been amplified, and people are enjoying that service. So the quantity of parking isn't as needed as it used to be. Plus, I think the trends are from your own planning staff's recommendations are to reduce the amount of parking, which then reduces the amount of impervious surface you have, which then reduces the amount of runoff you have. So all these things are sort of working together to minimize what has been seas of parking that you see in front of retailers that aren't full. I mean, and so that's been it's sort of been a problem. And then you lose some of the aesthetics that you could put in. And in this context, we're putting in trees, part of the zoning conditions that were presented before. It required canopy trees and buffer trees along that area here to the side. So all the variances are designed to try to provide a much more aesthetic development with fewer parking, more pedestrian-friendly access, with sidewalks that will integrate all of these lots together, all the out parcels and the grocer itself, and the two parcels that you see on the front end of Bill Gardner Parkway. So we've asked for those variances, and we wanted to come before you to make that official. And then we do have one additional request in our, appreciate staff, we just gave this to them today. It was in the application, but it didn't make the list here, and we want to make sure that it is clear. And because we're reducing the amount of parking, there is a requirement that often gets overlooked in the zoning code that does require a 20% pervious surface, like the tiles, like a parking tile that has holes in it, or a concrete surface that actually is semi-pervious and would allow water to go through it. We've asked to be exempt from that requirement. Because we're reducing so much parking in this, then we don't have the same problem that other facilities have, which is so much parking that you need to offset that with some pervious surface. So we're reducing all the parking, and we wanted to get an exemption from that pervious surface. The other problem with it is I've not experienced this, but my wife tells me it's a problem when you're wearing heels. You sink into that pervious surface. So that I just wanted to add that that's conditions, that's variance 6 that we've asked for tonight, and we would respectfully ask that you approve it with the recommended conditions or the recommended approvals from the staff, with the addition of this condition 6. And I'll read it. It says the requirements for pervious parking on table 4.3007C of the UDO, which states that at least 20% of the required parking shall be provided in pervious pavement, grass, gravel, turf block, or similar material shall not be required for this development. That's our ask in addition tonight. So and I wanted to make sure I spelled it out like a good lawyer and tell you the whole provision, so you know what it says. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them, but I hope you will also approve this one, and this will be the second easiest decision for you tonight.
Does the board have questions? Yes,
Mr. Welch, on the out parcels, is there parking around those, or?
Side and back.
Okay, side and back.
Not front. That was in discussions with the staff on the other zoning. What we went to was you can see from here. And that's why they also they put in there, if you noticed, that this plan has to be part of the Exhibit A. So they've tied us to this layout here with the approval. You will, if you grant it, will tie us to this approval. And you'll see how the parking, what we did do is we have a drive in the front of the buildings, because obviously you have to circulate people through for drive-throughs, but staff had asked us to push all the parking to the side and the back.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Does the board have additional questions for the applicant?
I would quickly like to add that staff has reviewed that condition 6 as proposed by the applicant, stipulation 6, and staff is comfortable with that language.
Okay. Now, for my understanding, what's the purpose of this pervious area?
Similar to what Mr. Welch had stated, that requirement for pervious surfaces considers the context of a sea of parking, truly. With this reduction of parking almost by, I think I previously by half, staff was comfortable in allowing this relief from that pervious surface requirement.
Okay.
If I might, Mr. Chair.
Okay, yes, please.
That's exactly correct. But the materials is porous. So when they say pervious surface, they're talking about something that's sort of semi-hard, like gravel, that would allow for water to go through into the groundwater. But it has to pass through some semi-pervious surface, and it's sometimes you'll see it. It's like a loose, granular gray. It's not quite gravel, but it's gravel that's been like glued together. It's gravel-like, yes, ma'am. And if you've ever walked on it, you can feel it sort of give a little bit to you. Okay. That's one form of it. The other form is that they make blocks. They're like small bricks, but they have a hollow center, and so there's dirt, grass, and that. But it's a gap, and so that lets some of the water come through. So that's the nature of the material, and under your current parking requirements, you require a lot of parking under the current UDO. And so you create a massive amount of impervious surface with the parking requirements. And then that means there's a lot of stormwater that flows off of that and goes to the detention pond. So part of the current ordinance would say, okay, some of that, 20% of that massive area needs to be slightly pervious surface to let some of that water go through. Since we've reduced the parking down 56%, we're don't think we need the impervious now. We're asking for that relief.
Now, will you have an architect or someone to actually clarify that? Because based on your description, I think that's there to prevent any floods or the parking lot from flooding. So will your architect be able to emphasize that with staff and ensure that we don't have that problem?
Yes, the detention pond will have to be, the existing detention pond will need to be modified to accommodate for the M1 that you're changing now to C2. So our architects and through plan review will work with them, the engineers, not the architects, but the engineers will actually engineer that detention pond to make sure that it accommodates the water. And if we have to build any additional detention ponds, as staff has said, they'll either be under the ground or they'll have a water feature to them. So in that case, they would need to maintain some level of water in them if it's a new detention pond. We're going to use the one that's already there for the most part, but it's going to have to be redesigned slightly.
Yes. Okay. I just want to make sure that we don't have a parking lot that's flooding before it get to the detention pond. I think that's the purpose of that pervious. As you explained it, I think I understand the purpose of it.
Yes, sir. And that does make sense, especially when you have so much parking under the current ordinance. And I think my understanding is that staff's working on maybe making some modifications to try to reduce the amount of parking that we see in Henry County, especially along our overlays.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional questions for the applicant?
Mr. Beam, if I may jump in here.
Hmm.
And so you go to the site plan?
Yes.
So, Mr. Beam, Mr. Delander, part of the issue with the variance, with the pervious parking is, again, like we've, in the past, had so much parking that you wanted to build in pervious to kind of offset some of that flooding issue. But because we've reduced the parking so much, and we're adding more green spaces and more trees, that's not really an issue for us. This condition that's in the ULDC that was drafted in 2009, it actually gives staff a lot of problems when it comes to developing the properties because of the gravel. And stormwater facilities have progressed a lot since 2009. So it's actually, it's one of those things we're looking at changing in the ULDC update as well. So just educational purposes, it is kind of a thorn in our side, the way it's written.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Again, any further questions for staff or the applicant?
I get paid by the hour, so y'all can just.
Okay, well, at this point, we have 3 minutes and 53 seconds for anyone else wishing to speak in favor. I don't see anyone coming forward. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Again, no one's coming forward. Does the board have any additional questions for staff or the applicant? Okay, we may call the case.
VR-24-11 SEK Locust Grove LLC of Augusta, Georgia requests a variance for property located east of Highway 155 South, north of Bill Garner Parkway and Land Lot 211 of the 2nd District. The property consists of 27.757 plus or minus acres, and the request is for relief from Development Standards District 1, presented by Kenta Lanham, Planner 3.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve with staff conditions, including number 6.
Thank you.
About pervious parking.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members. Have a good evening.
All right.
Thank you.
I believe that concludes our cases for tonight. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. This meeting is now adjourned.
Our next meeting is November 14th.
November the 14th?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Are you planning a meeting?